May 18th, 7:31 p.m. I will call to order the Brainerd City Council meeting, and we'll start with roll call.
T. Erickson.
Here.
Lambert. Here. Dunick.
Here.
Pritchett.
Here.
Bevins.
Here.
W. Erickson. Johnson.
Here.
And Badeau.
Here.
Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of agenda. Looking for a motion.
So moved, Bevins.
Pritchett. Oh, second,
Motion
Pritchett.
by Bevins, a second by Pritchett. Is there any discussion on approving the agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Dunick.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
W. Erickson. And Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. That brings us to the next item, which is the consent calendar. Notice to public. All matters listed are considered routine by the council and will all be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
Lambert, so move to accept.
Second, Pritchett.
We have a motion by Lambert, second by Pritchett to adopt the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Dunick.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
W. Erickson. And Johnson.
Yes, and that motion carries. That will bring us to number 5, which is our council committee reports. And today we start with the personnel and
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 5 items and we'll jump right into it. The first item is the approval of bills, and I so move.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
W. Erickson. Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Back to Alderman Pritchett.
All right. Our second item is the request from BCA for 4th of July fireworks. And the motion coming out of committee is move to approve the request from BCA for $8,000 for the 4th of July fireworks to be made after June 2nd, 2020, when it will be known that the event will be held, and I so move.
Second, Stunick.
All right.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
One of the reasons why this is coming forward now is they need 30-day notice in order to be able to plan the fullness of the festivities. In the current situation, we're not sure if that's going to happen. In the last 4 years, we've given $8,000 annually. In discussion, Mayor Badeau said that the very least that they want to do is to have a fireworks display. And so this money, and then we're hoping, there'll be some matching there'll be other funds from Baxter and maybe some other sources that will be able to at least do that. And if we do have a full-fledged celebration, we'll be in position to do so.
Right on. Any other discussion? Mayor Badeau.
Well, again, I'll take off my my mayor coat and leave the action polo on. I just want to thank you guys for taking a look at this. From community actions aspect, we have been meeting on a weekly basis to go over this stuff. We've been waiting and seeing, trying to make sure that the time is right and that we're taking into play all of the stuff that the governor has presented. Where we're at right now is that we for sure want to put on a fireworks display, and we're really looking to the cities right now to see if they're interested in participating in the way that they have in the past, so that we can formulate in the next week or two what those plans will be. So of the last 2 years, our cost on the fireworks was $18,000 to $20,000 for the last 2 years. Most of it is coming from the cities. So we needed to make sure that we're getting before you, finding out what your level of participation is going to be, so that we can plan ahead so that when we get that 30-day window, we've got a goal that we can hit and hit the ground running.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
W. Erickson, Johnson.
Yes, and that motion carries. Alderman Pritchett.
All right, that takes us to the start of the trifecta for Fund 217. And so the item number 3 is the Small Business Relief Grant. And the motion coming out of committee is to approve the transfer of $90,000 in state MIF funds out of Fund 217 to the Brainerd Economic Development Authority to fund small business relief grants. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair? So as you know, we've been talking about these MIF funds. Last year, this was designated for economic development and was used for a revolving loan to help with code compliance. None of that money actually came out. Nobody applied for those loans. Part of it might have been because there was a match that was connected with this. But with this, the EDA will be able to provide up to $3,000 grants to eligible businesses to help cover costs caused by COVID-19. With the governor's order, a lot of these businesses are opening and will be opening, and some of them will need some help to be opening. So if approved, the other thing is the EDA will hold a meeting tomorrow to look at more closely and approve the grant guidelines. And Dave Chansky, Mr. Chansky, do you have anything to add? Or
Alderman Pritchett, no, I think you covered it pretty well.
all right.
Mr. Chair, Mr. President, I have a question. Lambert, Dave, this is Lambert. Does this mean that the revolving fund is not being?
Jan, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gabe. Yes, I am wondering, does that mean the revolving fund is on, I'm going to say a hold this year? We're not going to be utilizing any of that? That money's coming back for this? Am I correct?
I can try to answer some of that, although Finance Director Hillman.
Whoever.
Pardon?
I said whoever.
Okay. Basically, there's about $133,000 left from those state MIF funds, and that was put in that revolving loan fund, and it hasn't been moving. It hasn't been helping with economic development. So if you're looking at the packet, we're taking out that $90,000. We're also going to be asking to take out another $25,000. So that will leave about $43,000 in that balance.
Okay.
What it's going to be doing is allowing us to be way more liquid with these funds and be able to help now and possibly, depending on some of these other ones, in the future if we need to.
These are going to be grants in the fact that it's money that will not need to be paid back, correct?
If I can answer it, yeah, that was something that was discussed by the EDA. One of the members, Yvette Campbell, who's a banker, was talking about one of the problems with making it a loan is what if that business goes in default or goes bankrupt anyway? Do we really want to be going after those people? And that's not something that we're interested in. We had that money specifically to help with economic development and help our small businesses, and that's what I think we should do with it.
I think it's a very good idea, but I just had those questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are you there?
I think we might have lost him.
Vice Chair.
All right, that'd be me. Until Gabe, there he is.
There he is.
All right, where are we at?
We're done. We're adjourned.
The question is, where are you at?
He had to take a dip in the hot tub quick. We just
Go
going
get
to
a
cover
beer.
some of the questions on the small business relief grant. And I don't know if you had any questions, Mr. Chair.
I have a few questions just from the idea. I think is a good idea, and maybe we should do it. I'm concerned with the guidelines. We're not limiting the number any individual person can get. If you own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses, are we going to let that person get 15,000? That's not written in the guidelines. The guidelines doesn't limit what type, it kind of limits what types of businesses, but not real tightly. Like a nonprofit could be eligible for this money. I mean, nonprofit isn't necessarily a small business that we're trying to support. You know, and also there's maybe this is okay, but a thing that concerned me is there was no means testing in the guidelines. But those are the three things that jumped out at me looking at the guidelines more so than the idea of a grant program. With the idea of the grant program, we don't know if this recession is going to be 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. So if we spend a lot of money on the front end, we may not have any money on the back end. So is right now the right time to be spending money? And those are all my questions.
Mr. Chair, I think
They are looking at the grant guidelines more closely tomorrow, and I don't know if that would be something that you'd be interested in or able to sit on that. There are some guidelines. One of my questions was how many businesses are there that would fit into this, but we don't really have that information right now. The EDA, it does say they are able to deny it, but it would be nice to have the grounds upon which they were going to deny it. I still think like we have some businesses that are on the brink right now, and I think getting them that money now, boy, holding on to it, we might be holding on to it and have nobody to spend it on.
Which is also true.
Mr. Chair, I do see that Community Development Chansky had his hand up.
David, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just a couple of things I wanted to address. First, Alderman Pritchett's, just a bit of a clarification that the $100,000 from the revolving loan fund, that's actually a separate item. So that's the third item that we're going to address. So the $133,000 that we mentioned that we have, that's actually what the city has currently, and then we're asking. The idea is to get an additional 100 back from the EDA. From the HRA, that'll pretty much backfill the money that potentially gets spent here. Also, so then going to President Johnson, some of your questions. Yes, when looking at the businesses, who's eligible and who can get this, the subcommittee did look at and consider grants and how many people can get them. And when they talked about, okay, we actually brought up and had the discussion, if someone owns a business that has 2 locations, can they get more than one grant? The answer came to be it's per legal entity. So if the 2 locations are under one entity, the answer is no, they only can get one grant. But if the 2 locations have their own LLCs, then yes, they can get, to your point, they could get a grant per LLC.
Right. And I have a lot of corporations and LLCs, way too many for somebody who makes as little as I do. But it's not hard to have. It takes $150 in 5 minutes to create an LLC, right? So I just think limiting per households or something as opposed to legal entities might be something to look into. But maybe these are all things I could bring up at the EDA meeting tomorrow instead. I don't know.
And I think part of, if I may, Mr. President, part of our presenting this here is, as I said during the PNF, the main request here to council is to just transfer the funds to the EDA. But we wanted to have these draft guidelines on the agenda because we want the council to understand what the EDA wants to do. And because it is the city's money, if the council does have stipulations based on, like, for example, the council wants to have the EDA make something very specific about how many grants people can receive, give the council the opportunity to put those conditions on the funds before they're transferred.
Okay. Jan.
I have a question. David had something about $100,000. Is that different than this 90,000 we're talking about?
So
so confusing.
So for this item, The EDA is requesting $90,000 from Fund 217 to fund this grant.
Okay,
Currently in Fund 217, we have approximately $133,000.
okay,
There's a second request for funds for a marketing campaign. That's the next item on the agenda. That's $25,000. And then the third item on the PNF agenda is to transfer $100,000 from the HRA, which is that revolving loan fund that the HRA was using, back to the city. And Jennifer can probably clear up that mud a little bit.
So, Mr. President, Alderwoman Lambert, if I may, so that $133,000 is that one-time MIF exception that the city of Brainerd took back in 2019.
correct.
And when the city took that, I think Connie can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was somewhere around the $175,000, 40,000 or so has been used on the riverfront. When the city decided to keep that 80%, return the 20% to the state, really the city could do pretty much whatever they wanted to with those MIF dollars. So in this conversation with the small grant program, that's specifically the funding that we're referring to.
Okay, so if we just stick to what we're talking about now, what we're asking for is the $90,000 of the MIF fund, correct? Am I okay? All right. And the other thing I want to comment, I do like Gabe's suggestion. I do think we need to look at limiting how much money a business can get, and also that, you know, a little more definition of what businesses we are saying we can get. So give to. Anyway, thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that I support the motion. However, I think the restriction based on a scenario you just brought up, Chairman Johnson, would be based on employees. That we would limit the grant to an individual it's not really an LLC owner, but a principal with 0 employees. We'll use your example, Gabe. You have 30 LLCs, but you're the only person on all 30 of them. You can apply once. People with multiple LLCs that have multiple different employees, at least one can apply for multiple grants. So that's how I would do it, because it's possible that a person could have 3 LLCs, each with an employee, that are legitimate businesses that need this assistance. On the other side of the coin, I don't mean to illegitimize your situation, Gabe, but it is possible then to abuse the system. So I would base it on separate employees. Each application must have a separate, at least one separate employee for every application after one. That's what I would do.
Mr. President,
And,
this is Tad.
Alderman Erickson, I believe that Gabe is frozen again, so Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, Tad.
Yeah, so I agree. I think maybe we can shore up just a little bit on the definitions and the requirements. I will point out it is written in there that the right to deny, the EDA retains the right to deny any application. So if a scenario like that came up where it was kind of against the spirit of what we were looking to do, I think that they would have the purview to do that already. But I agree. Let's shore up the requirements just a little bit. But yeah, definitely support the motion. I love the approach here.
Okay, any further discussions? I see Connie had her hand up, and then we'll go to Mayor Bedell. Connie, did you have your hand up?
I was just saying that there is a reporting requirement too as part of the grant application that does require them to report after 2 months of receiving the grants, how the grants were used, providing form of paid invoices, statements, or similar documentation. So I think we're going to see too, we're going to notice if one individual is the same receipts are being submitted, I think that would not be allowed either.
Thank you. Dave Bordeaux, Mayor Bordeaux.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for the discussion that you're having here. This is a fantastic program that I really support. However, you guys bring up very valid concerns. And one of the biggest issues with the programs that the federal government put out was the backlash that they received for some of the corporations that were taking funding out of that. And most of that money did not get returned, and the bits that did only did because the public had outcry on it. I think it's important for us to not put ourselves in that position, and for us to make sure that we're giving guidance to the EDA if we're putting that power in their hands, or more specifically making those decisions here at the council so that we can put that program into place. We know what the restrictions are, we know where we're headed with it, and then we won't have that type of backlash.
Excellent. Dave Pritchett, did you see your hand up?
I was just going to say what Finance Director Hillman had talked about. And also, if those funds are used illegitimately or ineligibly, they are to be returned to the EDA.
Okay. Right on. Anybody else have a comment or question? David Chansky, I have one for you. How complicated do you want this motion? Right? I mean, we can move to approve the funds and leave it to the EDA for you to pass on what you've heard tonight to the EDA. Or we can try and make this a convoluted motion. I mean, are you hearing what's being said?
Yeah, so I got two notes. The biggest notes that I'm hearing is one, more identify more clearly the eligible businesses, to who is actually eligible, and then businesses, LLCs, whatever, how they're organized with this, how I understand, with the same principal applicant, to receive multiple grants, those businesses have to have unique employees. They can't be the same employees. The one thing I would request about the eligible businesses, I guess maybe having a little guidance on what that means. I know with the EDA, with the eligible businesses they had listed, was trying to cover as many as we could. There is at the very end of that some ineligible, a short ineligible list. Talk about they have to be obviously they have to be in Brainerd. They can't be home based or internet based. They actually have to have essentially on operating, can't be gambling, can't be adult oriented, or have a marijuana base. So if I mean a little more guidance on specifically you want to target, do you want to specifically say nonprofits are excluded? What is the council looking for?
Any comments? Dave Pritchett?
You know, and looking at those nonprofits, I mean, I'm not an expert on them, but I think nonprofits serve very important purposes, and many of them do employ people. So I don't really know if that would be an advantage to the community to exclude nonprofits.
Anybody else have a thought on nonprofits or anything else? I agree with Dave Pritchett. Dave, you're back in. We're talking about nonprofits.
Mr. Chair, this is Lambert. I do agree with both you and Dave. I do think nonprofits are still having expenses, and the service organizations do a lot for our city. So I agree with you guys. I gotta mute. My puppies are barking.
Okay, so what did I miss? We're in favor of nonprofits. We're in favor of one individual getting multiple grants.
And Mr. Chair, Community Development Director Chansky.
David, take it.
Yep, Mr. President. So just, I think what was discussed, quick to catch you up, is that if you have multiple businesses and it's the same principal applicant, they have to have unique employees. And I was looking just for more guidance about eligible businesses. Maybe the better way to frame it is, are there any businesses you don't want to be eligible? As opposed to saying, how do you trying to kind of shrink the bubble, I think is what the council is looking for, a more specific bubble. Is there any kind of business you do not want to, you feel like should not be eligible? I feel like that maybe that might help better.
Okay, can we exclude Kelly's service from this?
No.
No.
I've already got my application filled out.
But I want to help the smallest businesses, the retail, the people most affected who are dependent as their primary income on their small business in Brainerd. I'm not interested in giving money to Visit Brainerd, who's a nonprofit with only 2 employees who doesn't need $3,000 at all. And they would not apply, but they would be eligible. And it just doesn't make sense to me. So I just wouldn't support, without stricter guidelines on who can get this. I think any nonprofit who is in dire need of $3,000 either has the support base in their membership or connections to find $3,000, or one government grant isn't going to save them. Mayor Bedeau.
You missed my previous statements on it, but I kind of agree with you. And to put the jacket back off and go back to action mode, it would be irresponsible for me not to bring this to my board as a nonprofit. However, I don't think it's in the spirit of what you guys are looking to do. So I would agree with you in that even though we are a small group and we would be eligible for this, I don't think it's really in the spirit of it, but I would definitely be putting it in front of my board and letting them make that decision.
Jennifer.
So, Mr. President, members of the council, I think another part of the discussion was in the EDA subcommittee was about making sure that the businesses that got this grant would be those who were affected by the COVID-19. And maybe this is a great discussion. Maybe that needs to be honed in a little bit more.
Mr. Chair, Lambert.
Jan.
The we have identified that they need to have employees. It looks like it's 10 or under. Number 2, on a nonprofit, if their employees are the members, that would, I would see, would be able to disqualify them. Because even if, because if they got volunteer, like VFW, it's all volunteer. So I think kind of read backwards here and saying I think we need to look at nonprofits a little closer before we say we could put them. So I'm kind of going backwards on what I said earlier. I would be okay with as a business or as an entity of not receiving the $3,000 of time. Thanks.
Richard.
I think part of the discussion that you missed is something that Councilman Bevins had brought up is, do we want this to be reflected in this motion from City Council, or do we trust EDA to be able to take it from here, which is why Mr. Chansey was giving his notes as to what he was taking from the conversation.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just going to vote no on the motion. You're not going to convince me that it's a good idea. I just don't know if we're ready to do the 90,000. So does anybody else have discussion on the motion?
Mr. President, this is Erickson. Yeah, I go back and forth on the nonprofit. Certainly want to support the nonprofits, but just looking at the language we're using in the documentation that's provided, it's the small business relief grant. Elsewhere in the document refers to businesses. So I guess I would like to see it maybe limited to just businesses at this point.
Connie.
Just another question that came up when we're talking nonprofits. What about churches? Or places of worship? No, they were shut down due to COVID as well. They're hurting from
Auto deduct from our bank account, though.
You could if you signed up.
Kelly.
Mr. Chair, I think for this motion, nonprofits, churches, those type of non-business entities should be excluded. It's an economic development money, and it needs to be used to generate revenue for businesses. And I don't think that's in the spirit of nonprofits or churches. It does not mean that they're not hurting or could not use help. It just means this is what this money is intended for originally. Second, I would differ from Mr. Johnson in that timeliness is important. I don't know if we can wait another 2 weeks and then more time. I think part of the purpose that the EDA had when they put this forward is timeliness, to try and do something in conjunction with the governor releasing the stay-at-home order, slowly, but still releasing it. And it's possible, don't kid yourself, it's possible somebody's gonna get $3,000 that didn't deserve it. I don't know if we had a year, if we could prevent that. I think we should vote on this tonight. If it passes, I believe Mr. Chansky can do a good job explaining the parameters of the county, of the council's wishes, and I think we need to vote on the release of the funds.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, I do believe that we have, that Dave may be having technical difficulties again.
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Erickson. Could I make another comment? Yeah, I agree. I think timeliness is of the essence. Let's get this out the door and let those who are in need of it decide how and when they, I know the requirements say they have 2 months to spend it. So let's get it out to them and let them decide how it should be used. One thing I'll mention, unfortunately, the council president's not on to be able to hear this, but a point that he brought up about the businesses, multiple LLCs, the single principal owning multiple LLCs. I think a lot of that will be weeded out through that first ineligible item does not have a physical business address. If I'm a principal and I've got 6 LLCs, it's not that I have a physical business, a physical address for each one of them. And so I think that that ineligibility would weed out a lot of those. That's not to say, I don't think we should include that. So maybe shore up the requirements just a little bit. But I think that bullet's going to do away with a lot of his concern on that point.
Perfect.
Called in now.
Gabe.
Mr.
I
Chair.
think we're pretty to vote. No, guess not.
No, Mr. Chair, this is Lambert.
Yep.
I just want to say I agree, and I'm ready to make a motion.
Motion is
We have the motion.
seconded.
We have a motion first and seconded, and did you guys amend it to get rid of the nonprofits, or are they still in it?
No, we figured that. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, we are removing nonprofits and churches. We're looking basically that these are businesses for economic development. That is the purpose. And then we're going to David has a good understanding what we want. And so that's what we do. That's my motion.
Okay, let's vote on Dave's motion,
Can
and then we'll
we provide
any other discussion.
Can we provide clarification on who made the motion and who seconded? I didn't get
I made the motion.
Dave Pritchett made the motion. I believe Tad seconded.
I'm sorry, David. I sort of put that. I thought I did, so no problem.
We've been debating it for a while. I've been kicked out 3 times.
Just a clarification, this is Tad. I did not second it. I think it was either Jan or Dave.
Okay, so I'll second it.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, that works. So Jan seconds. And then we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
She's muted. Jan, you're muted.
I'm sorry, yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
Johnson.
No, that motion carries. Next item, Alderman Pritchett.
Yep. I just noticed that. That was my fault. Sorry. Item number 4 is the request for funds to conduct a marketing campaign. And the motion coming out of committee is to direct staff to implement the proposed marketing campaign and designate up to $25,000 of state MIF dollars from Fund 217 to fund the campaign, and I so move.
Second,
A
Bevins.
motion, a second from Bevins to approve the marketing campaign request. Is there any discussion?
All right, so with Executive Order 2056 reopening businesses today, and on the first, people need to know first and foremost that businesses in Brainerd are open and that they are safe. Jesse, our communications interns, put together a marketing campaign. Some of the costs are estimated, that's why it's up to. But this is a multimedia campaign, including social media, radio, internet, YouTube, printing. Actually, Lakes Area Printing donated some of the services, newspapers, Lakes Country Journal, billboards. This will also be in collaboration with the Lakes Country Cares, but aimed specifically at the needs and of the community of Brainerd. So,
Okay, is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair Lambert, Dave, or anybody can answer this question for me. Now, when we start reopening, we're going to be issues with masks or not wearing masks? Is it pretty much you can do whatever you want, or some of these businesses going to require masks?
I'm not sure that this motion has anything to do with that, unless I'm misunderstanding either your question or the motion.
What I wanted to say, if that's the case, if they're going to require it, that should somehow be on the marketing. That's what I've been hearing a lot, is people are very, very frustrated because they don't know that the business is requiring masks until they get there. And then they're turned away if they don't have it. I just think we need to do some kind of.
It looks like Tyler has something to say about that.
Yeah, thank you, President Johnson. To Councilman Lambert, the language inside the Lake Country Cares is indicating that the mask wearing is a recommendation. They are using state guidelines. And so the state guidelines that were presented by the Department of Employment and Economic Development lays out, along with Labor and Industry, lays out guidelines for business safety. And if we do follow the Lake Country Cares campaign, they are talking about mask wearing, but they can't make it a requirement, but it is a recommendation based on their guidelines. And so that's the inside of that language, there is a campaign around the mask wearing.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tyler. Yep, Jan.
For Tyler, so that means, what I guess the point is that all businesses are agreeing to follow that recommendation. They're not going to make it individual policy saying you need to wear masks in order to come to my business.
If they are adopting that Lakes Country Care, if they're endorsing that act, that campaign, the mask wearing is inside of that. It is going to the county, and the county is actually signing off on the action plan for the business to get open.
But the motion here is to do a $25,000 advertising campaign for all of Brainerd business. Right, so not really related to Lakes Country Cares or masks, which is later on our agenda. David, you had your hand up. Jansky.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to clarify for Alderwoman Lambert's benefit, hopefully, is part of what Jesse put together, that printing element that was mentioned, that Lakes Printing is willing to do some donation. Part of that is the businesses can put that in their window. That's something that we'd want to do in collaboration with Lakes Country Cares. That's coming later in the agenda for the council to consider formally supporting that. And so we could work on potentially putting something on that flyer that goes in their window about masks. We could do something to that element.
All right, thanks for the clarification there. Looks like Mayor Badeau has something to say.
I just want to note that on this one, I think it's important, coming from a advertising background, this is something that we should be taking our time on. I know in the last one we talked about how it's pertinent that we get this moving and that we have that money and those funds available. But right now you've got 3 other organizations that are running campaigns specifically for the Brainerd Lakes area. You are going to be competing against those ads if you're creating an ad campaign right now. And I think it's very important that if we do go with this and we decide that this is money well spent, that we're waiting to see what the type of reaction from customers are going to be. Are they requiring masks in order for them to want to shop places? Are they not? And then two, what is our actual messaging? As President Johnson said, this could be a long haul. We could be in this for a very long time. And if we're just quickly shooing $25,000 out the door just to get an ad campaign up right now, when other people are doing that, maybe we should take our time and make sure that we're crafting a message that actually says what we want it to.
Chansky?
Yes, to the Mr. Mayor's point there, one thing we also clarified in PNF was that this money, even though it is being its request from the EDA to do this marketing campaign, staff's belief is this is something that should be kept at the city's level. So I don't disagree with Mayor Bedeau in that by keeping it at the city level, we can definitely, do it right. I think we definitely, if we're going to spend this money, let's do it right. And it's not necessarily something we got to have ads out the window tomorrow. And by keeping it at the city level, the council can definitely have a lot more input and control as to what that message means.
Thank you. Wayne Erickson.
I would just like to add that this is for the small businesses to help them to bring the customers in when the governor allows this process, hopefully in the next week or so. So this really needs to be something that we can't wait on. I think it's pertinent that it goes along with the money that we're giving them to buy the masks or buy the plexiglass or whatever they need to get their business open. And this is a campaign to get advertising out to bring the customers back into the Brainerd city area. So it's not a county-wide, it's just a city-wide. They're going to need our help to draw the customers back in. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, you had something to say?
I do just a couple of things. First of all, thank you all for your comments. A couple of things. One is on the Lake Country Cares campaign. I think we really see this as something that is going alongside of. However, while Lakes Country campaign is really focusing on our businesses throughout all of Crow Wing County, I think our thought was, how do we put the spotlight on Brainerd specific businesses? How do we draw attention to our Brainerd specific businesses? Second of all, just second what David said, the recommendation is to not put this to the EDA, but rather to keep this at the city council or at the city staff level. I hear you. Make sure we're taking it slow, make sure we're doing it right. Maybe this is something that we could bring back, something a little more refined to the June 1st agenda. So the council has the opportunity to take a look at it, not getting it out the door tomorrow, May 19th, but really taking our time, taking a look at this, working with other people in the business who do marketing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, this is Lambert.
Thank you, Jan. Yep.
Maybe what we need to do is prioritize these items, what we would like to see, start and then be able to use this marketing kind of ongoing with the different medias instead of dumping everything at one time. But maybe we need to prioritize what is going to be the best to start with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have one question to David, I suppose. Last agenda item, we approved $90,000 to give grants to just 30 businesses in our town. Why did we decide to, instead of giving 8 more businesses $3,000 grants, why did we decide an advertising campaign from the city was a better use of funds?
This was direction that staff, as we took it from the EDA. And I think at this point, so one, with the grant, we did talk about $3,000. I think first of all, that can be an up to $3,000. So if someone only wants $1,000, they can request $1,000, but obviously everyone can get $3,000. But on that marketing piece, I think that his idea is maybe not every business needs the $3,000 to get back open, but every business can be helped by the marketing. And so kind of broaden it. And I think Jennifer can add to that as well.
Okay,
So,
yeah, Jennifer?
yeah, Mr. Chair, I think one of the things that we continue to hear in this EDA subcommittee meeting and throughout Brainerd actually is that we have a lot of businesses that are open, but nobody knows they're open. And I think the reason that the marketing campaign really came out of this was to try to highlight our businesses in Brainerd and that they are open. They may be doing only curbside pickup, and now maybe with the governor's new order, they're opening, but only at 50%, but they are open. I think that was the other reason for the marketing.
Okay, Pritchett.
I just wanted to say two things. I mean, one of my concerns was whether it was going to overlap a lot with the Lakes Country Cares. But, you know, we kind of talked about that in committee. And on that, I know there have been concerns about other organizations that are Lakes area that we sometimes talk about aren't focusing enough on Brainerd. And so what this will do is it'll kind of bring that focus on to Brainerd. The other thing is ever since I've been on the council, there's been talk of doing media campaigns and advertisement campaigns for Brainerd businesses. If this goes well, this might be a template to do stuff like that, you know, going on into the future, even if we get over this COVID hurdle. So I just wanted to say those two parts in support of this.
Thank you, and I agree that I think it could become an ongoing thing, and it wouldn't be a bad use of economic development dollars. Anybody else to speak to the motion, Jennifer?
Yeah, sorry, one more comment. The other thing that we really started this conversation off with the EDA subcommittee is two options. Should we do an RFP and go out and try to hire a marketing firm who really does this? They know what they're doing. They do this for a living. Or should we try to do a smaller scale and keep it in-house? We just hired a communications intern. So I know that was a part of the conversation. We could probably get a really great product if we hired an outside firm, but also we recognize that there would be an additional cost to that as well.
Excellent. Kevin Stunick.
I'm still here. I like the idea of putting the brakes on. Not that I'm against this program, but like Jennifer just said, we did hire a communication intern. She's done an excellent job in the week and a half she's been here. Let's let her see what she can come up with. Maybe we can save ourselves a ton of money and still get a great product.
Jan.
Mr. Chair, perhaps we should look right off the bat. I'm thinking that our city transit, perhaps we should contact the person that puts advertising on, that we could perhaps put on the buses that go through Brainerd and Baxter and, you know, Pine River. We could put some advertising on there. I don't think the cost is that much, but we would at least have a moving billboard. We could look into that.
Just really quickly to clarify, that's one of the ideas that's actually in this plan, what Ms. Lambert was talking about. And then to go back to Ms. Bergman's comment, this is what our intern did. This is kind of the plan that she came up with and brought to us, I do believe. So.
Okay, anybody to speak against the motion? Seeing nobody, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson?
Yes.
Lambert?
Yes.
Stunick?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Evans? Evans?
Yes. Slow motion.
W. Erickson?
Yes.
And Johnson?
Yes, that motion carries. Back to Pritchett.
All right, that brings us to our last item, and the last of the three things having to do with this fund is the termination of the memorandum, the MOA with the HRA for the administration of the revolving loan plan or program. And the motion coming out of committee is to authorize written notice to be sent to the HRA terminating the memorandum of agreement associated with the administration of the City of Brainerd's revolving loan program and requesting the HRA to waive the 60-day notice requirement in the MOA, and I so move.
Second, Evans.
We have a motion by Pritchett, a second by Erickson. Any discussion?
I mean, this just goes back to that revolving loans program that, hadn't been used for a long time. The money, and so getting rid of that $60-day wait period, that wait allows us to be able to utilize these funds and provide assistance. And it kind of gives us a little bit preparedness if there is a round two, so we can access these funds with what's remaining.
Right on. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. End of report for Pritchett. That brings us to 5B. Thank you. The Safety and Public Works Committee, Alderman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Engineer Sandy is going to talk for an hour and a half on item number 6 on influx and infiltration, and we'll still beat PNF's time.
Will there be a video?
Amen.
You can't handle a video. All right, we have 6 agenda items. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is the event application for the Corpus Christi Processional by St. Francis, and the motion is to accept staff's recommendation, approve the application so long as the event is in compliance with the governor's orders and proper social distancing guidelines are adhered to, and I so move.
Lambert, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just that we eliminated the groups of 10 people in the motion that you see in your packet, only because the governor's guidelines are fluid.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Alderman Bevins.
Item number 2 is also an event application for a produce pantry pop-up from Central Lakes College. The motion on that is on May 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Mississippi Parkway. And the motion is to accept staff's recommendation of the attached event application under the conditions that any signage and garbage be immediately removed after the event, and I so move.
Erickson, second.
A motion by Bevins, a second by W. Erickson. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, motion carries. Alderman Bevins.
Thank you. Item number 3 is improvement 20-02, the 2020 crack seal project quotes. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation, authorizing the staff to enter into a contract with Lot Pros in the contract cost of $15,758.72, and I so move.
Lambert, second.
A motion by Bevins, a second by Lambert. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
This is the one that we bid, every year after the county bids theirs, then we piggyback on top. This year it's Lot Pros, which we've used in the past. There's also an additional, roughly $5,625 worth of material that we buy on a state bid that goes towards this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
yes,
Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4 is testing services for improvement 19-10, the Northeast Brainerd Resurfacing Project. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation of the proposal from ITT in the total amount of $4,495, and I so move.
second by Erickson,
We have a motion by Bevins, a second by W. Erickson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
as you can see, this particular proposal is significantly less than our normal testing services of Braun Engineering. This is staff's way of testing the market and the capabilities of this testing firm, which has not done a lot of work in the Brainerd Lakes area for the last decade or two. This becomes an issue. You'll hear more about it in the next agenda item. But staff feels comfortable on this project that we can take the low bid and see how it goes.
Thank you. Paul, I think that in my 6 years on the city council, this is the first time we've had a bid not from Brown on testing, isn't it? Darn near.
You're right, Mr. Chair. Not a lot of other testing companies around the area that are able to compete with them. This ITT, they claim to have an office in Baxter now, although that's up in the area. We don't know that for sure. So they reached out to us, and staff is comfortable, I guess, trying them on a smaller project that we have less testing on. And you'll see in the next item what our recommendation is to go with Braun again on a different project.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? David? No, just grabbing your drink. Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
yes,
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Alderman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is item number 5, which is testing services for improvements 19-09, 13-21, 19-16, 19-20, and 19-21, which is the North Brainerd reconstruction projects, primarily B Street, Fifth Avenue, B, C, and D streets for 1 block behind the mall. And the motion is to go with staff's recommendation approving the testing services proposal from Braun Intertech in the amount of $44,480, and I so move.
Lambert, second.
Motion by Bevins and a second by Lambert. Any discussion? Alderman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So how these testing companies bid is they bid per test. They say, we think this project is going to need this many tests, and therefore we're going to bid this project at that many tests. And therefore their bids can be extremely different. Braun Intertech, traditionally a company we've used often, as you said, Mr. Chair, has a tendency to bid these things on the conservative side, meaning that they expect so many tests and they generally come in under budget. What IT&T bid is a significantly lesser amount of tests. The concern is we don't know their performance abilities, and this is a state aid project, which is going to be much more rigid, requiring the amount of testing and the timeliness of testing. Meaning if you've got a contractor putting in curbs and the next day the guy's coming behind to lay tar, you have to have the testing done in a timely manner. Staff feels much more comfortable with Braun Intertech as far as the value and the ability to perform the work, and feel that the dollars and cents would probably become more equal as the project progresses. And so that's the justification for the higher amount. It's not just a bunch of widgets or X amount of tar. So, and maybe with ITT being tested on the previous project, we may find that they're a great value in the future, but for this one, we just don't have the knowledge to be able to make that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the motion to award the contract to Braun? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Dunick,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Back to Alderman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going to try and do this last one with, and I apologize, with no sewer videos, and I know you're all disappointed, but it's already getting a little bit late. The motion out of committee is to approve staff's recommendation on the proposal from SEH for the services outlined in the document, with half the cost being paid to BPU and the city's share to come from the sanitary sewer fund 237, and I so move.
And Erickson seconds.
Motion by Bevins, a second by Erickson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Bevins?
Thank you. To try and be brief, this is a critical project, because what we're doing here is we're trying to determine where the primary sources of sewer water or groundwater are getting into our sanitary sewer system, and thereby being treated in the sewer plant, and increasing the amount of outflow we put into the river, which is limited by the MPCA. So if we can reduce that stormwater from getting into our sanitary sewer, we cover our bases better with the MPCA by reducing the amount of clean water that we're processing through our sewer plant. It's so important that the BPU has agreed to pay half of this project. As much as we would have liked to have it on the bid for the budgeting purposes, the timeliness is such that we feel it's important to do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Dunick,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries.
End of report.
Thank you, Alderman Bevins. That brings us to item number 6 on our agenda, unfinished business. 6A is a call for applicants. Mayor Badeau, now's your moment.
Oh, we better start the theme music. I don't know who's got that queued up, but if you can hit go, Jennifer, well, I'd appreciate it. We have the following availabilities on our committees. We have the Cable Advisory Committee, 1 term expiring 2021, 2 terms expiring 2022. We have the Charter Commission, 2 terms expiring 2020, and 1 term expiring 2021, 1 term expiring 2022, and 1 term expiring 2023. So get on that. Plenty of spots available in that very much important document of our city. Also, we have 1 term for the EDA, which expires on the 7th of September, for all those reasons that we remember if you've been following along in the previous chapters. We have 1 term expiring 2020. Again, that is September 7th of 2020. And then obviously the Water Tower Committee is still looking for applicants as well.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And on the EDA,
I should have specified what my theme song was.
Just took a guess. I'll have something different for next meeting.
Much appreciated.
Okay, that brings us to new business, 7A, consider City of Brainerd preparedness COVID-19 plan. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. First of all, nice levity, much needed. First of all, I'm going to take these in a little bit of a different order. Would like to thank you for your patience. As things are changing so rapidly, we're trying to address many things that are coming out and trying to do it as quickly as we possibly can. So I know that I sent this out to you late this afternoon. Probably the biggest reason is because the fire kind of took over this afternoon. So I'm going to go through a couple of things. As you know, the governor issued Executive Order 2056, safely reopening Minnesota's economy and ensuring safe non-work activities during the COVID-19 peacetime emergency. In your packet, I did include the governor's order. So as we reviewed the order, a couple of things jumped out. One of the things was that all gatherings of more than 10 people are still prohibited under this safely reopening order. However, in the governor's order, it did not apply to legislative and other governmental meetings. So although remote meetings are still strongly encouraged. So when we looked at that, our recommendation was that since council chambers are still in the process of being remodeled, and now after the fire this afternoon, actually have quite a bit of water in it and some more damage. And I know Chief Holmes will be on here in a second. He can address some of these issues. So when this was written, our thought was that the council chambers were going to be completed by the middle of May, the week of May 25th, and then the AV equipment sometime in mid-June. But we don't know how much the fire at City Hall has delayed some of these things. We still hope that maybe we can have a recommendation back to you on June 1st. So at this point, we're recommending that at least for the June 1st meeting that we do meet via WebEx. The second thing that jumped out at us was that customer-facing businesses can be open, but they must have a preparedness plan, which we'll address here at the end, and not exceed 50% of normal occupancy. As we prepare for the reopening of City Hall, we have done things to get ready. Actually, today the glass was installed as approved by the council at the last meeting. We actually tested it. Although it's glass, it's pretty clear and you can very clearly hear people. 4 inches on the top and 4 inches on the bottom. Not that I know any of us are fans of barriers. We do see that's one of the things that most businesses and governments are now going to. We have purchased a lot of the necessary equipment that we need, such as gloves and masks and sanitizing needs. But at this point, we would recommend that our facilities stay closed to the public until we've assured that we have collected everything that we need to protect both our staff and also the public. However, we have done an update to our stay-at-home work plan, and if you see in the attachment, there are a number of city staff that are now splitting their time working between the city facility and home. We are seeing more and more of our city staff come back into City Hall just because it's more efficient for us to be there. Again, the fire this afternoon has put a bit of a wrench into our split time from work and from home. So again, we are recommending that we remain closed to the public until at least June 2nd, and that would give us enough time to prepare and implement the requirements of the preparedness plan, and then make sure that we have everything that we need to keep the public and our employees safe from the COVID-19 virus. So with that, the next thing that really jumped out at us was the requirement in the governor's order to do a preparedness plan. And for this, I'm going to ask Chief Holmes to present to you what our preparedness plan is. So Tim, if you're there.
Yeah, good evening. For some reason, my camera won't connect, so you'll have to stick with the logo for the night. Again, yeah, like Jennifer mentioned, just part of the orders requires a plan for us to go back to work. And I kind of, as I summed it up last week, I think it's more or less repeating everything that we've been hearing for several months now about first of all, if you're sick, don't come to work. If you have these symptoms, don't come to work. I think it's very generalized when it comes to that. Give some guidelines as to if you are sick and your ability to use your sick time. Lays out again the signs and symptoms of COVID-19. And then also just goes into more detail about what we need to do at each of our facilities to get back to work, as far as cleaning, hand sanitizing and washing, stuff like that. Along with this plan, Chris has prepared guidelines for each department as to who is going to do what within their departments, as far as, you know, who's cleaning the doorknobs and who's cleaning the common areas. And that's all already been laid out, since we do have people coming back to work already. So again, this is just a good reminder for everyone as to what they need to do and how we need to do it to not only keep our staff safe, but keep the public safe once they are coming back into our buildings.
So thank you, Chief. And then just last but not least, I did include in the email that I sent to you this afternoon a letter, just one letter. We're giving a letter to every city staff that is coming back to City Hall. As Chief Holmes mentioned, just very specific about, you know, sharing of vehicles and cleaning of space. Chris Schubert has put together several different letters for different departments, so that we're making sure we're really thinking this through. So that, with that, Mr. Chair, we're happy to answer any questions. I think the action that we're looking for from council tonight would be, number one, to approve the updated stay-at-home, City of Brainerd stay-at-home work plan, and then number two, to approve the City of Brainerd's preparedness plan. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions, or I'll take a motion before we ask
Mr.
questions?
Chair,
Jan?
and it's not related to work, but in this, they said you have to have a preparedness, the businesses that are opening have to have a preparedness plan. It doesn't say if this has to be posted or if it has, the city has to know about it. Is it just that it has to be done, but it doesn't have to go anywhere?
Tim or Chris?
Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, have at it, Tim.
Okay, so yes, this plan needs to be documented, and all employees need to have a copy of it or have been, you know, trained or given the information that's in the document. I know Crow Wing County Public Health is reviewing all business preparedness plans. I don't feel that we need to have them do that for our plan, but that is an option for businesses in Crow Wing County to have their plans reviewed by Crow Wing County Public Health.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm ready for a motion to approve the work from home and preparedness. Alderman Pritchett, you have something?
I would like to make a motion to adopt the updated City of Brainerd stay-at-home work plan.
Second, Bevins.
We have a motion and a second to approve the stay-at-home work plan. Is there any discussion on the stay-at-home work plan? Pritchett.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say, you know, having been privy to these meetings, the extraordinary amount of work that's gone into this by staff, the depth of discussion that's had at these meetings, and the compassion and consideration for both public and staff never cease to amaze me whenever I'm there. All of you can be very, very proud of everybody that's had a hand in this process.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Any other discussion?
And Mr. Chair, just likewise, we appreciate Alderman Pritchett's voice at that table as well, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Alderman Pritchett. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson?
Yes.
Lambert?
Yes.
Dunick?
Of course, yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Bevins?
Yes.
You Erickson?
Yes.
And Johnson?
Yes, that motion carries. So now we need a motion, Alderman Pritchett. Alderman Pritchett.
I'd like to move to approve the City of Brainerd Preparedness Plan.
Second, Dad.
We have a motion and a second to approve the preparedness plan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the consideration of a resolution supporting Lakes Country Cares. Jennifer?
So, Mr. Chair, I can be brief. I know we've talked a lot about Lakes Country Cares campaign. There is a resolution before you to consider in support of the Lakes Country Cares campaign. It is done in collaboration with Crow Wing County and the Brainerd Lakes Chamber of Commerce. And really the purpose of the campaign is to build trust among residents, visitors, and local businesses. And the chamber is asking for not only the city of Brainerd support, but all of the local jurisdictions, local units of government throughout the county. You do have a resolution in your packet, and with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is there any questions, or I'm ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, move to adopt the resolution endorsing the Lake Country Cares campaign.
Lambert, second.
We have a motion by Bevins and a second by Lambert to adopt the resolution supporting the Lake Country Cares campaign. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is appoint community members to the Region 5 Children's Museum Task Force. Jennifer.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the council, as you know, at the last meeting, the city council did appoint two city council members to be on the task force, and then opened up the nominations or the applications for community members for the Children's Museum Task Force. So just a couple of things. We did receive 4 applications, 3 in your packet, and 1 was emailed to you this afternoon. I know Connie is prepared to show that on the screen if needed. We did not get any applications from City of Brainerd residents. All 4 of our applications are from people outside of the City of Brainerd. So the 4 applications we received are from Cynthia Askeruth Olson, Mandy Denz, Amy Gunlock, and Katrina Wood. In their applications, you all see that they have some passion and desire to be working with children and children's museums. We did open it up to everybody. It was available to everybody for 2 weeks, but we would just like to get the council's feedback as to whether or not you would like to appoint 3 members from this list, or if you would like us to reopen it and try to get Brainerd members. So with the chair, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any thoughts? Jan?
I am being a bugger here. That was one of my concerns when I saw the applications, that there was none in the city of Brainerd. So my question is, how much is the city putting into the Children's Museum as residents? That would be a question I need to ask, and have to understand what my thoughts would be here.
How much is the city putting in what regard?
Well, I mean, is the city of Brainerd supporting this? Are we supporting a majority of this, or are we getting help from outside the city? I know the museum is helping us, but are we getting any monies from the county or any of these outlying cities to support this?
So, Jan, the Children's Museum is its own nonprofit entity that we have not given any direct financial support to, and we aren't currently on the hook for any future direct financial support. This task force isn't just about the Children's Museum. It's the task force that manages the Lum Park Master Plan that we approved, that we're working with Widseth Smith Knowlton, where the city has a handful of appointees and the Children's Museum has a handful of appointees. So what's at risk for the city isn't monetary loss, but it's how is Lum Park, how is our park that's been in our city for 100 years going to look for the next 100 years? And that's what this task force is going to talk about and recommend to the city council.
Then, Mr. Chairman, may I make another comment? I have, I also saw a clause about Region 5. I do think that it would be beneficial for us to have a member that lives in the Region 5 section, along with perhaps 2 people from the city of Brainerd. Because it's going to have some output, because we're going to rely on, the museum's going to rely on people in the whole area. But I would like to see some Brainerd residents on the committee. Thanks.
Alderman Evans.
Gabe, was that me?
Yep.
I would like to recommend we hold this. I think the people that applied probably could do the job fantastic as far as the Children's Museum goes. But as far as the representation of the city of Brainerd, I would like to see more residency qualifications for at least a couple of them. And so my recommendation would be to hold the applications open for at least 2 more weeks.
I would support that.
I agree with Alderman Bevins. Student, you said you agree with that? Okay, does anybody oppose to keeping them open till June 1st and revisiting it then?
Lambert, no.
Okay, well then we'll just move forward with that. And go to the next item on our agenda. Oh, Jan?
No, this is Jennifer.
Who was that?
It was Jennifer. So just on that, we will re-advertise this then, and we'll close it. We'll close it that Wednesday before the June 1st, before the city council meeting, and we'll have that back on your agenda. Thank you, Dr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I don't think we need to reach out to the current applicants, because I don't think we're opposed to having somebody who lives in Baxter, but we do want representation from Brainerd. Okay, with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Conduct dangerous dog hearing, and I'm just going to hand it over to our city attorney, Joe Langle, to handle this.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Council. So what we've got here is an appeal of a dangerous dog determination. I'm just going to make some introductory comments, and then we'll follow the process that's set forth in the city code. So the dog at issue has been described as a Mastiff by the name of Rain. It is owned by the appellants Joshua Hall and Erica Olson. There are several incident reports concerning this animal over the past year. I have records on 6 of them, all of them concerning dogs running loose, and 4 out of the 6 concerning aggressive behavior or attacking other dogs. I'm not going to go into the details of all those. What's relevant are 2 of them. The first is in January of 2020, was a report about dogs running loose, acting aggressively towards another dog in that dog's property, and acting aggressively towards the animal control officer, Mr. O'Brien. That incident resulted in the animal being designated potentially dangerous. So that's important for purposes of the process in the city code. So as of January 9th, 2020, the dog was deemed a potentially dangerous dog by animal control, and that designation was not appealed. That gets us to April 22nd, 2020, and the incident that is underlying the appeal that is before you tonight. This was a situation involving an allegation that Rain again attacked a dog on private property, and based upon that alleged attack, he was deemed, or the animal control designated the dog as a dangerous dog, which creates certain obligations under the city code. So at this point, under the code, what is to happen is that the owner of the dog, Joshua Hall and/or Eric Olson, as the people who are appealing the designation, have the right to provide comments to the council and provide their argument as to why they feel that this dangerous dog designation is not appropriate. So and then after that, we'll come back to a response by Mr. O'Brien and any witnesses to the incident that led to this designation. So with that, I would turn it over to, if they're on the phone, Joshua Hall and/or Erica Olson, the owners of the dog.
Is one of the dog owners present?
Sean, are you there? I think Sean is going to unmute the Collins.
They are unmuted. The Collins are.
They're unmuted. If anybody is here for the dangerous dog hearing appeal, please speak.
Hello.
Okay, state your name and address.
Catherine Rolfe, 906 South 10th Street, Brainerd, Minnesota, 56401.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
and you are the owner of the dog?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Rolfe is the owner of the dog that was attacked. Given that this is an appeal, we need to hear from the owners first, or there is no appeal. So I'm just, can we find out if either Joshua Hall or Erica Olson is online?
Is there a Joshua Hall or Erica Olson on the phone call? And everybody's unmuted and nobody is speaking.
Mr. Chair, if the people who appealed did not appear for the hearing, then there is no point in having one.
So then we just move to the next agenda item then, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, Sean, will you mute the call-in users? The next item on the agenda is a farmer's market update. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my report, what I've stated is I've now reached out to four different organizations and also the Parks Department. None right now or all have declined to take the lead on the farmers market. And so with that, I am just recommending that we suspend the downtown farmers market for 2020 and then to continue to encourage a local organization to take the lead for the farmers market in 2021. With all of the new guidelines that are out, according to the Minnesota Farmers Market Association, I think it would require a lot of staff time in order for us to make this happen by June 9th or even this time, anytime this summer. So at this point, our recommendation is that we just suspend it for 2020.
Motion to that
Mr.
effect.
Chair, this is Lambert.
Yep.
I will make the motion to make the motion to approve to not have the farmer's market for the year 2020.
Bevins seconds.
A motion by Lambert, second by Bevins, to not have the city expend resources to host a farmer's market downtown this summer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
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 Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion passes. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the first reading of proposed ordinance number 1508, amending section 900 of the Brainerd City Code pertaining to animals. Jennifer, David, Connie?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. With our new software with BSNA, there is an animal licensing component. And when we were reviewing the animal license component, we reviewed the code. And really 3 things pointed out is that we have never collected information on the color of the dog. Historically, we have not attached a copy of the rabies vaccination to the license. We've only requested the vaccination number. And the third thing is that the current ordinance says that they shall sign an affidavit for the owner to sign saying that the animal is spayed or neutered. With our new software, we can accommodate all the things that are needed with a little extra work, but it's up to council. Staff's recommendation would be not to collect information on the color of the dog. The whole reason why we have the dog license is that we can control rabies, and we know that the animals within the city are vaccinated. Staff feels that if we see the rabies vaccine and can document when the current rabies vaccine is expired, that would be sufficient. And the third thing would, so that we sign the affidavit. In the affidavit, I think we just kind of take the owner's word now on it. We could create an affidavit and then attach it to each license numbers. We're wondering if that would be too cumbersome for our residents, and if that is something that we can just take the resident's word on it. We said just fix around it all, or we could amend our ordinance to make it be in compliance.
Thank you. I have one question, Connie. How many dogs are there in the city of Brainerd?
I think usually we issue around 150 licenses per year.
150 dogs in the city.
I guess since our animal control officer is still at the meeting, I would be interested to see his opinion on this as well, on what he says, if the color of the dog is important, if we can just view the rabies vaccine number and when it expires, and then just what he thinks of the affidavit for the owner to sign it.
Great, thank you. Looking for a motion to move forward with staff or dispense with the actual first reading. Kelly.
Mr. Chair, I move that we hold the first reading of proposed ordinance 1508 and dispense with the actual reading, all in one motion.
Second. Pritchett.
A motion by Bevins, a second by Pritchett. Jan?
Mr. Chair, is the animal control officer in that we could answer those questions?
Is he on? Is he here?
Can you hear me?
I can.
I'm still here. This is Mike.
Yeah, take it away, Mike.
What was the question? I was getting some text at the time. I didn't hear it.
The main question is that we have never collected the color of the dog, and we're wondering how important that is.
I mean, I don't. As long as you have the dog's name and from the veterinarian, and they usually have the age and the date of birth or whatever and all that stuff on her. I don't know that you need it. I don't know that it would be beneficial that much.
Is viewing the vaccination records and when it expires, do you feel that's sufficient rather than having it actually attached to the license?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. And then the third thing is the affidavit for the owner to sign if the animal is spayed or neutered. And I did note that there's a $5 difference in the license cost depending if the animal is spayed or neutered. Right now, we currently just take the owner's word for it. We get in my mind, that's okay, but again, that's up to council's decision. And so we're just trying to adjust our ordinance to fit with what we have been doing as well as our new software.
Yeah, I think most people are probably honest. If they're taking the time to get the license, they're probably going to be honest about it, I would assume.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have one question for you too, Mike, actually. Have you reviewed these changes and you're supportive of them and you think they all work within our code and how you have to work?
I actually didn't know that anything about this, but I saw on the agenda, so I quickly pulled it up on my other phone to look at it. And yeah, I don't see why this wouldn't be okay. one comment about the, there's 150 dogs in Brainerd. Just because there's 150 licenses sold doesn't mean that there's 150 dogs in Brainerd. We're working to improve that number. But there's certainly more than 150 dogs in Brainerd.
Yes.
And that number of licenses just off the top of my head. And I do know that since Mr. O'Brien has become our animal control officer, we have seen an increase in compliance. So I want to give heads off to him. He's definitely made residents more aware of it and has spent his own money having people, reminding people to get their dog license or running ads in the paper. And we really do appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You've been doing a great job. And if something pops in your head in the next 2 weeks before we do the final reading of this ordinance in the next 2 weeks, be sure to let us know if something does need to be adjusted that would make your job easier.
All right, thank you. I will.
All right, any other council discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call to hold and dispense with the first reading.
P. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Junick,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Johnson, yes, that motion carries. That brings us over to the next item. Only one page left, everybody. First reading and set public hearing on proposed ordinance number 1509, amending section 515-37, signs of the Code of Ordinances. David?
Yep, Mr. President, I'll take care of this. Thank you. So this is coming from myself and then also Engineer Sandy. We're proposing an amendment to section 515-37. In your council packet, the agenda request that you'll see, it says non-commercial speech signs. I just want to address that really quickly. One of those questions of what is a non-commercial speech sign. To just clarify how our ordinance sees that is it's pretty much any sign that isn't promoting some kind of business or organization. For example, any kind of political signs. We're seeing a lot of signs out right now in front of homes that have class 2020 graduates, signs that are supporting our first responders and those in the medical field right now during this pandemic. Those kind of signs would be considered non-commercial speech signs. Currently in our zoning code, how it reads in 515-37-5C, it says signs are not permitted in the public right-of-way and shall not be within the site visibility triangle. The issue, the reoccurring issue we see is especially during political seasons is signs improperly placed and in the right-of-way. And from my perspective and Engineer Sandy's perspective, part of the main issue is that a lot of people don't understand where their property line ends and the right-of-way begins. And so to kind of clarify that, make it easier for people to understand, make it easier for people to follow the ordinance, reduce the amount of enforcement we as city staff have to do, is to just amend that paragraph to say signs shall be placed no less than 15 feet back from the curb and shall not be within the site visibility triangle. By saying 15 feet back, I would say about 98% of the time, if someone goes to their curb, measures 15 feet back, places their sign, they're going to be on their private property. I would say there's probably very few, if any, areas around the city that have a greater than 15-foot right-of-way. I know Engineer Sandy can speak to that. So with that, we're trying to make it easier for our residents to comply, make our code easier to understand, and then also reduce staff time by having to enforce something we don't really want to do. So what we're requesting here, there's two items on this one. The first is to set the public hearing. For any ordinance change, there has to be a public hearing. Because filing starts tomorrow, we did want to kind of expedite this process. So we're asking to hold the first reading tonight, set the public hearing for June 1st before the second reading and considering adopting the ordinance is held. And I'll take any questions if there are any.
All right. Thanks, David. Since everybody on the council is up for election this year, you got to have some questions, right? Dan?
Mr. Chair, my question, with this 15-foot, is that pretty much going to take care of the visibility triangle too?
For the most part, it should take care of the visibility triangle. And again, visibility triangle, what that is as well, just to clarify, we're talking about at corners. If you have a sign too close to the corner, coming vehicles from the other direction.
Okay, I have one question for Joe. I know a couple of years ago there was that Supreme Court case that the city couldn't regulate what was on a sign. We could only regulate whether signs are allowed or not. Is non-commercial speech, are we able to regulate non-commercial speech different from commercial speech?
There are different standards between commercial speech and non-commercial speech. Certainly, there's we have greater latitude dealing with commercial speech, generally speaking. But your overall rule is still going to be focused primarily on regulating time, place, manner of speech, not content.
So there's no problem with this as far as speech laws?
Not that I'm aware of, that I can see at this point.
Okay, any other questions? Take a motion to hold the reading and dispense with the actual reading. Kelly.
Bevins.
Second, Pritchett.
We have a motion by Bevins and a second by Pritchett to hold and dispense with the first reading of proposed ordinance 1509. And any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Dunick,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson, W. Erickson, Wade, try one more.
Yes.
And Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. That brings us to what brought us all here tonight. The municipal separate storm sewer system presentation and public hearing. Take it away, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. Many of you have been through this presentation before. I usually have the assistant engineer come in and do this. So I'm a little impromptu. I'm giving the speech tonight. James, with all the hassle and things today, he didn't grab his computer to bring home. So anyways, so what this purpose of this is the city has a permit with the MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, to operate a storm sewer system. And with that comes an annual reporting requirement that we have to hold a public hearing to allow the public to comment on stormwater related issues around the city. We usually preface the public hearing with a quick presentation to go over what our permit entails, what our SWIP plan, our stormwater pollution prevention plan has in it, and kind of give a general overview of what our storm sewer system is. So I think Connie might be on the presentation. If you want to scroll to that, Connie, I'll kind of go through the slides that are in the packet. So the purpose of the meeting, number one, we'd like to educate the public on stormwater management. Two, to give an overview of our storm sewer system. And another thing is to give an update on the status of compliance with our MS4 permit. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And then, of course, we allow the public to comment on the SWIP, or the Stormwater Pollution and Prevention Plan. I'm full of acronyms tonight. So on slide 3, our MS4 permit is issued to us every 5 years. We have received a draft of this permit from the MPCA for the new cycle. With all of the stuff that's going on, I think it's going to be delayed, the issuance of the new permit. We have received a draft of it. We have started to look at how to implement some of the new requirements that we have in the permit. A lot of it has to deal with pet waste, and municipal operations such as street sweeping and things like that. So we have started to look at different promotional ideas, pamphlets, or things that we can get out to the public related to stormwater issues that are within the permit. So the permit basically regulates the discharge of stormwater into waterways such as the Mississippi River, Little Buffalo Creek, all the waterways that we have in Brainerd. It requires that the city implement a SWIP plan, which is a stormwater pollution and prevention plan. And it requires that we implement basically what they call minimum control measures and standard operating procedures for our staff to adhere to when they're doing operations related to stormwater. So on slide 4, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, what that has in it is basically 6 components that we have to meet. The first is a public education and outreach component. That has to deal with our stormwater website, our pamphlets that we have and that we try to spam out to people every once in a while. There's a lot of things that we do departmentally to try to make sure that people are following our stormwater standards and that people know that water quality is important, especially where we live. The second one is public participation and involvement, which is kind of what we're doing tonight. We're required to have 1 public hearing a year to allow the public to come in and speak about stormwater related issues. The third thing is illicit discharge and detection and elimination. This is more of a staff training program to educate staff on how to identify illicit discharges. That can include someone dumping paint in the curb line, oil down the storm sewer, putting grass clippings in the street or leaves. That's more of a issue. And it also how we educate the public on what an illicit discharge is. Construction site runoff controls. This has to do with our ordinances, and the MPCA actually does have permits related to construction site runoff. Post-construction stormwater management. This is how we as a city manage how commercial and residential businesses deal with their stormwater that leaves their site. Mostly ponding or infiltration or different practices that we require through our ordinances. The last one is pollution prevention and good housekeeping, which has to deal with how we manage our stockpiles, dumpsters around the city, anything that could possibly produce an illicit discharge. So the goal with our SWIP plan is to create best management practices or eliminate to the best of our ability pollutants entering the waterways. And our SWIP plan contains 44 BMPs or best management practices. Slide 5, just a quick overview of our storm sewer system. We have approximately 57.5 miles of pipe, and that ranges from anywhere from 8 inches to 60 inches in size. Most is a concrete, reinforced concrete pipe. We have just around 2,500 structures or catch basins, which are what you see in the curb lines, and approximately 580 storm manholes, which are what the catch basins are connected to generally. As far as an outfall is where the stormwater exits into a waterway. We have 84 of those. And as far as other structures, we can consider those to be ponds that detain water for treatment purposes, private detention ponds, which are what like commercial businesses would install, and rain gardens, which are the ones we installed around Buffalo Creek and in Lum Park and the dog park. So we have 44 wet detention ponds. We have 32 private infiltration or detention ponds around the city, and also 19 rain gardens. A quick overview on how we fund our system. Our funding of the storm sewer system is based on our storm sewer fund, and that is a rate that is charged on residential and commercial business bills. Right now, the charge for a residential home in Brainerd is $4 a month. Commercial properties are charged $1 $4 charge per 1/12 of an acre of impervious surface. So impervious surface is anything that's hard surface that basically allows runoff to occur. So, for example, if a business has 1 acre of impervious surface, they would get charged $48 per month on their bill for stormwater. And a rate study program for 2020 with our rate consultant to ensure that our rates are covering the expenses of our system. So some of the tasks that we completed last year pertaining to our storm sewer system or our MS4 permit, we inspected 25 outfalls. We're required to inspect 20% or 1/5 of our outfalls per year per our permit, so that we inspect them all once through a permit cycle. We inspected 11 ponds, which is we're required to once again inspect 20% of them every year. 9 stockpiles, those were required to inspect 4 times a year. And we inspected all 19 of our rain gardens 4 times this last year. And of course, we perform maintenance as needed to those items if we find things wrong with them. As far as most of our erosion control inspections deal with building permits. Those we conducted 68 formal inspections. As part of the permit, we also document how much sanitary sewer we cleaned, and that's using our back truck. We cleaned approximately 72,852 feet of sanitary sewer pipe, and we swept about 800 cubic yards of material from the streets during the spring and fall seasons. So on slide 9, some more things that we have that we are still working on. A couple of years back, with the new permit that came out this last cycle, we implemented some changes in section 430 and 725, which have to deal with stormwater during construction. We've been implementing that. We had our interns start working on new documentation checklists for our MS4 permit based on the new language in the 2020 permit. And we created new handouts and brochures that we've been trying to post on Facebook and working with both IT staff and now the communications intern. Those will start coming out again during the stormwater season, which is usually the summer months. As far as what we have planned for next year, our program for repair and maintenance of outfalls, we're finding that some of the repairs that are needed to be done are a little bigger than what we would anticipate as a normal maintenance practice. So we're trying to plan those more under a capital improvement kind of project, just because they're a little more, time heavy than a normal maintenance practice would be. Some outfalls that require, they're hard to get to, or they're much bigger repairs than what we have the ability to do. We might end up having to hire someone to come in and help repair those. And of course, we have to do our yearly inspections of all those things that I covered earlier. Under slide 11, we have to, of course, continue to train our staff on our standard operating procedures and all of the items within the permit, illicit discharge detection. All of those things are part of the permit and are important to continue to train our staff on. And of course, we need to continue looking at the new MS4 permit that'll be released sometime this year. Having a preliminary look at it, there are a lot more requirements. Some organizations that the city of Brainerd are a part of are in talks with the MPCA to kind of loosen some of those regulations. There's a lot of new language that is going to be a big burden for cities. And so there are some negotiations still happening in regards to that permit. As you know, we're still working with our consultants, HR Green and WSN, to do our stormwater retrofit analysis study. I was supposed to have a meeting with the consultant today about that, and we are in the final stages of getting the report together. And we should be having a presentation within the next couple months on that plan completion and give the council the results of that study. And something that I plan on budgeting for in 2021 that I brought forward earlier was a citywide H&H model, which has to deal with how to plan our storm sewer system for the future, and events and things that are causing massive amounts of damage to our storm sewer system. Doing a citywide H&H model or hydrology and hydraulic study will help us to anticipate where the problem areas are and where pipe sizing might need to be upsized to handle larger rain events in the future. So last couple slides, task for the new MS4 permit. A lot of the stuff has to deal with public outreach. So obviously distribute handouts and brochures that we've created with the city website, social media, using door knockers, and increasing public outreach on topics to promote clean water entering our waterways. And we're going to work on modifying our documentation style, our organization and layout of data within our archives and within GIS. We're in a constant improvement process with that and trying to get all that data imported into our GIS to be more useful to our staff. And so with that, I'll take questions and comments from the council, and then we can open the public hearing to any questions or comments that the public may have about what was presented or stormwater issues they find pertinent.
Should we open the public forum first or council comments?
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you feels best.
Let's go to council comment. Do any council members have questions? Kelly.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Engineer Sandy, where's the 5-foot sewer pipe?
That would be, there's one that exits downtown and goes kind of down through the football fields. That is the one, and there's also that big box culvert that runs through Southeast and through the Franklin football field. That's also about 60 inches. So there are a couple bigger pipes that take a large amount of stormwater.
Okay, they just need to know where to hide when they come.
I recommend making the Southeast up to like 90 inches.
Yeah. Drain the swamp.
Any other council comments?
Dogtown.
Hearing none, we'll open it up to public comment. We'll open the public hearing right now. So let's unmute the call-ins. Is there anybody here to speak on the MS4 presentation? Please state your name. Anybody here to speak on the MS4? Anybody here to speak on the MS4? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 9:28. Thank you, Paul. That moves to the next item on the agenda, resolution to accept the bid of improvement 1910 Northeast Brainerd Resurfacing Project. Paul. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we opened bids for our Northeast Brainerd Resurfacing project, which is the resurfacing of quite a few streets up in Northeast, including O Street, E Street, 10th Avenue Northeast, J Street, 11th Avenue Northeast. We received 2 bids, or 3 bids, I'm sorry, Knife River, Anderson Brothers, and J.R. Furchie. And the low bidder by about $2,000 was Knife River Inc. out of Little Falls for a total cost of $1,145,091.20. This is about, what did I have here? About 10% under our engineer's estimate of approximately 1.3 million. And this project we were planning to bond for with the funds coming out of Fund 401 or respective utility funds dependent upon the type of work. So staff recommends adopting the resolution which accepts the bid and allows staff to enter into the contract with Knife River Corporation.
Kelly.
I have a motion when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept staff's recommendation, adopt the attached resolution in which accepts the bids and authorizes staff to enter into a contract with Knife River for improvement 19-10 in Northeast Brainerd Resurfacing Project in the total project amount of $1,145,091.20. And I so move.
Lambert, second.
A motion by Bevins, a second by Lambert. Any discussion on the resolution? Kelly?
Just a comment that I know the bids were really close. I wish we could use a Brainerd company.
Mr. President, just as a comment with that, Knife River Corporation out of Little Falls is previously Tri-City Paving, and Knife River did buy them out. However, they were Anderson Brothers' main competition back when Tri-City was around. So it's good to see a little competition too.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Dunick,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson, Wayne, and Johnson.
Johnson's a yes. That motion carries. We'll go to the next item on the agenda, resolution accepting bid on improvements 1909, 1321, 1916, 1920, and 1921 Northeast Brainerd Reconstruction Project. Paul?
Bingo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, this is the same resolution, different project. This is the reconstruction of B Street from Gillis to Fifth Avenue Northeast, Fifth Avenue Northeast from Washington Street to D Street. The three streets that go into the East Brainerd Mall property, B, C, and D Street. 19, 20, and 21, which are just small 1 to 2 blocks. We received 2 bids for this work, one from Anderson Brothers and one from J.R. Furchie, in the total amounts of $1,950,787 and $2,056,822.10. Those bids represent approximately a 4.61 and 10.31% over engineer's estimate. With that, staff feels that the 4.61% bid is within an acceptable tolerance to accept those bids. And so staff is recommending that we adopt the attached resolution that accepts those bids and authorizes staff to enter into a contract with Anderson Brothers Construction of Brainerd and the total bid amount of $1,950,724.87. Those funds to be reimbursed to our state aid account. And there are also some costs related to BPU water main and sanitary sewer and storm sewer funds.
Thank you, Paul. I'm ready for a motion to adopt the resolution. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we accept staff's recommendation, adopt the attached resolution in which accepts the bids and authorizes staff to enter into a contract with Anderson Brothers Construction of Brainerd LLC in the total bid amount of $1,950,724.87. And I so move.
Stunek, second.
We have a motion by Bevins, a second by Stunek. I have one question for Paul. The previous resolution was a little under the engineer's estimate by about 130,000 or so. And this one, it looks like it's about 100,000 over. So between the two, we're still slightly under your estimate for the two projects.
Yes, that.
Okay, thank you.
Our total improvement. So,
any other discussion? I'm glad we're going with the Brainerd company this time. Seeing no other discussion, we'll vote by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Dunick,
Yes.
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
W. Erickson,
Yes.
and Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. We are done with business for the night. We have a couple agenda items left. First being the public forum. So let's unmute all of these call-in users, and if you are here to participate, you need number 10 too.
Yes.
Okay, if you're here to participate in the public forum, please state your name and address.
Cheryl Peterson, 1518 Quint Street, Brainerd.
Okay, Cheryl Peterson, let's hear what you are here for.
I'm the only one. Okay. Well, I'm a lifetime resident of Brainerd, 25-year resident of my neighborhood. I'm very passionate about this. So I wrote notes, so I don't want to forget anything. I'll try and get you under the 4 minutes. I'm requesting an amendment to Section 900 of the City Ordinance to allow for a nonprofit permit or license for in-home rescues. It's different from kennels, who are already registered or would be with the state and federal government as legal nonprofit entities. They already exist here in Brainerd. Recognition from our city would help regulate the legal and upright rescues, yet would help animal control weed out those who give substandard care and truly hinder the animals. Since 2018, I've been in the business longer, and I took over the administration of my former boss died tragically, and 10 of us administrators took over. We started National Boxer Rescue. Since then, they've all kind of scattered and started in their own states. I kind of ended up with National Boxer Rescue. I was the one that signed the dotted line for the 501c3. So I've gotten it. And since 2018, my own rescue from coast to coast, I've vetted, offered surgery, microchips, analyzed behaviors, adopted out, and put into sanctuary and hospice over 80 dogs myself. Because Brainerd does not offer such a license or permit, it causes rescues to run rogue, which isn't fair to anyone, especially the animals, when we've otherwise worked so hard to become legal nonprofits and, do a great service. We put a lot of money into our community. My vet will vouch for that. And would hate to think that we would have to move our home, the sanctuary dogs and the adoptable dogs, to somewhere else. This is my home, something we've successfully run for so long. I want to work with you on a resolution and certainly would lend my experience in the field to write something satisfactory to both sides. And if you simply refuse to consider this issue, I would request time to raise the funds for an alternate location in the county, although that would seem unnecessary given the time we've successfully been here and unfair to our family. I've had 3 kids, raised 10 here, then adopted 2 granddaughters, and then a grandson came along. So I still have kids in high school in Brainerd, at the high school. If you let us stay and we work this out, we get something going for the nonprofit. This particular nonprofit, as a side note, would be more than happy to help you alleviate some of the EDA funding that you're sitting on. We would put it to good use since we have lost due to COVID-19. I know there was mention earlier, as interstate transport has really been hindered. Free spay and neuters by some shelters have ended due to lack of employees and vets in-house. Donations are non-existent right now, literally non-existent. Our last Giving Tuesday was 0. Numerous reasons volunteers have gone totally ghost. I want to thank you for listening and hopefully putting this on the table for June. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, Cheryl. Is there anybody else here to speak in public forum?
Yes,
Anybody
this is
else
Julie
here for
Vanderscoff. Hello.
Julie Vanderscoff, name and address, and then
Julie Vanderscoff, 11229 Easy Street, Brainerd, Minnesota. I guess I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in. Cheryl has done nothing but wonders with these animals. I've seen the way they come in and I see the way they go out. She is dedicated, loving. She puts, when she doesn't have the money donated, she puts her own money in. And you and I both know that owning a dog can be very expensive. And so while she's trying to rescue and rehome, it's very costly. And she's going to do this one way or another if she's got to find a new home. And I don't think it's fair when our community needs this. We need rescues. There's lots of animals out there that get given away that don't go to good homes. She makes sure they go to good homes. She checks in on them. She follows the bylines. She follows the rules. But that's what I really have to say. But, you know, really think it through and see what you can all come up with. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else here for public forum? Anybody else here for public forum? Anybody else here for public forum? Hearing nobody else speak, we will close the public forum at 9:42 and move to the next item on our agenda, which is staff reports. Any verbal updates since the packet? Anything happened since the packet came out, Jennifer?
You know, Mr. Chair, I think it's really appropriate that Chief Holmes goes first. He would probably be able to give you the most detailed information.
Excellent. Tim, let's hear what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so just a quick update on the City Hall fire. We called in the State Fire Marshal's office. They were on scene tonight till, I believe, about 7:30 or so. They will work with the league's adjuster and the league's investigator. They'll be back there in the morning. So that investigation will continue on. I thought it was best to bring in the State Fire Marshal's office since it is a city-owned building and we are a city entity. It's just best to cover everyone as far as that goes. As far as damage, there's extensive damage on the roof of the City Hall. The water damage inside, I think, was controlled really well. We tarped and covered everything over that west area, all those offices on 3rd floor and 2nd floor. Service master was in there when I was there at 6 tonight with the investigator, working on cleaning up and ionizing and trying to get the smell out. So things are moving as quickly as it started on fire, as quickly it's getting cleaned up and taken care of. One caution I would have is just make sure that we don't move too quickly with the contractor to get them back in there until all the responsible parties have had a chance to get their look at what's going on up there. I just don't want us to move too quickly and you know, destroy anything that they may want to see up there.
I think that's a fair concern. How long are we going to be further out of City Hall?
If I can answer some of those questions too. So with what Chief Holmes had just stated, the League of Minnesota Cities is sending their adjuster up at 9:30 tomorrow, and as Tim said, they'll be talking with the private investigating firm that will be looking into the. We have also contacted the insurance adjusters for Northern Air Corporation and Thielen Heating and Roofing, so that all the adjusters can be on site and give us the clearance to move forward with repairs. We did an evaluation of the damage on the roof, and WSN is coming up with a plan of repairs to those areas. So once we get the clearance from the adjusters, we'll be able to begin. It looks like maybe 3 or 4 joists underneath the sheeting were damaged, and obviously the sheeting was going to get replaced anyways with the re-roofing of the building. And so it could have been a lot worse. There's not a lot of additional work besides the third floor water damage. That's damage to the roof itself, and a lot of cleanup down on third floor and putting in new ceiling tiles. It doesn't look like any of the new mechanical equipment was damaged with water. So it really just looks like finishes like carpeting and ceiling tiles are the real issues on the third floor, and a few on the second floor, which did get a little bit of water from the third floor. So from that aspect, there'll be more to come tomorrow after we get the adjusters through and the contractors get the go ahead after the adjusters and everyone's on the same page.
Excellent. Any other council questions about the fire today? Okay, any other staff updates?
Mr. Chair, just briefly, well, a couple of things. First of all, kudos to the fire department. They were there in 3 to 4 minutes. They had the fire contained in 10. And Tim could quote you when it was actually out, but I know there were several of us there kind of hanging out on the sidewalk. The fire department also escorted us in, so we were able to get in there and get our computers out of the way and get them moved. So, you know, Connie and Paul and several staff just staying there, trying to make sure that we're protecting City Hall as much as we possibly could in the safest way that we did it. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for hanging around and doing interviews. It was much appreciated. So anyway, you know, not what we wanted to see, but it could have been a lot worse. So thanks to everybody for stepping up. The one thing that I just want to mention, that the House and the Senate do have a bill in for the CARES Act, and how the state will allocate the funds from the CARES Act to provide funding for cities and counties under the COVID-19, that CARES Act. I don't know, the session has to end tonight, so I have been trying to track it. Right now, the Senate is proposing $87 per capita, and the House is proposing $51.57 per capita. If that passes, that would be about $1.194 million from the Senate side, $708,000 from the House side. Those funds can be used to reimburse us for COVID costs. In addition, and the language is a little, I haven't been able to find a lot of guidance on it, but also some of those funds could potentially be used to help our small businesses. So I'm tracking that, and I just wanted to share that with you. And with that, I think you've heard enough from me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jennifer. David.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just 2 quick things. Again, as I alluded to earlier, EDA does have a special meeting at 6 p.m. tomorrow, May 19th. And then there is no planning commission this month. It was scheduled to be held at 6 p.m. This Wednesday, May 20th. Planning commission looked at it, really wasn't anything that needed their attention this month, so they opted to just save some time and not hold their meeting this month.
Thank you, David. Connie? You're muted.
Connie, you're muted.
I heard Connie's muted.
Sorry. We're moving forward with the bonding. We're bonding in 2020 for the, we're using tax abatement bonds for the parking project, for the parks project. We're bonding for the 2020 improvement projects, as well as the fire truck and other engineering equipment. There will be a public hearing on the June 1st meeting for the tax abatement bonds as a requirement to be able to issue those type of bonds. The second item is election filings open tomorrow at 8 a.m. We have 6 out of our 8 positions up for election because 2 of them are special elections. There was new legislation allowing for electronic filing. So this really helps with City Hall being out of commission and us working remotely with COVID. So what that means is that filings can be made via email and fax. We can accept affidavits that way. All packet information will be linked to the Secretary of State office, and the $5 filing fee can be payable via credit card or dropped off in the payment box outside of City Hall, in the lock box that's outside there. So we will have information on our website tomorrow by 8 o'clock. Thank you. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Connie. It's funny to think that 6 people are up for election. Next year, Kelly and I could be the only 2 people still sitting here. Any other updates, Corky?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing.
Thank you, Corky. Tim, I'm going to ask you one more question. Connie mentioned the new ladder truck. Today may have been your last rodeo with the old ladder truck, right? We're getting the new one pretty soon?
I certainly hope so. Our call numbers for this month are through the roof. So yeah, it appears that we should have the new ladder here to start our training, hopefully the first week in June, if not for sure the second.
Excellent. Okay, Mayor Bedeau's report.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay, buckle in. You better have that theme music ready because it's going to be a long one. This is going to be like the closing credits of the boringest movie ever. First of all, I just want to tell you guys, thank you to all of our first responders, to the police department, to all the agencies that were there today, especially our firefighters and our city staff. You guys did a fantastic job in containing the situation and making sure that it was as calm and as manageable as possible. Obviously, with some interns there, as Jennifer had said to a couple of news agencies, interns that we didn't even have their phone numbers, their cell phone numbers on file to get a hold of them. I was just glad that everybody was able to get out safe and that we didn't have any issues there. So thank you to everyone involved. Special thank you to our firefighters, obviously. And big shout out for my opportunity to use the word aerial apparatus today. So that was good. That was a home run for the city of Brainerd if I've ever seen one. So, but I just want to thank you everyone again. And obviously this is not ideal. I was just touring City Hall last Friday afternoon, and we were talking about how fantastic it has went and how great it looks and how we managed to come in early and under budget. And then, of course, you know, this is how life is, but we will rebuild and we will make it even better. So,
Brainerd strong.
Okay.
I prefer New York Groove by Ace Frehley next time, please.
Okay, we'll go in the order you appear on my screen. That means Kelly Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a shout out to some local businesses. I recently, we know a lot about the COVID and how it's affecting local businesses. We spent a lot of time this evening discussing how we can help them. Recently, I got to use 2 Brainerd businesses, Easy Rider Sports, the bike shop, and Mike Hamid Upholstery. They both are in business and open. You got to call first, but it's not a bad idea to do that because the doors are locked. But they need your business. And those 2 that I used this week did a great job getting me in, working out in the parking lot to handle what I needed, and then getting my needs met in a timely and efficient manner. It worked great. It's not what we're used to, but it can be done. And I just want to encourage everybody to continue to support local Brainerd businesses. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kelly. Dave Pritchett.
I have nothing to report.
Jan Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 things. One, I'd like to let people know that as a member of the Memorial Day Committee, we are going to have a short ceremony at the All Vets Memorial on Memorial Day. It is going to be live streamed, so we are going to have just under 10 people, and that's just basically the participants. So stay tuned. It's going to be in the paper and that, how to get on the live stream. So we're making some adjustments. As expected, the traditional ceremonies have been canceled. And then the other thing too is regarding the open forum that we had, public forum, I am wondering if the staff would be able to get things together regarding that rescue at some future meeting.
Jan, there's some pending legal matters there.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that. Thank you. But anyway, so I will, that is it, just the Memorial Day, and hopefully everybody can tune in. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin Stunek.
That would be me. I have 3 words for you. Support local business.
Thank you, Tad Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to say great job, fire department, police department, and first responders. Other than that, nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tad. Wayne Erickson.
I would just like to give a kudos out to the EDA and all the work that they put into to put the development together for the small businesses reopening here. I'm just proud of the EDA and what they did, and all the city staff, all the work that they've done to put this project together. It's exciting to see the businesses finally get open. I want to thank you all for the work that you put into it. That's all I have.
Thank you, and I have a bunch of items for you all. First, the fire. I just happened to be driving down Washington Street, and my wife and I saw black plumes of smoke, and she thought it was Ed Menk's former building, and I triangulated it, and I'm like, no way, that's City Hall. We drove there, we saw the flames on the roof and the black smoke billowing, and my heart just sank to my stomach. But by the time we were able to drive the 3 blocks to get to City Hall, the fire department was already there. They already were getting it contained, and it was just a great job by our fire department, and a great job by Kim, and a great job by Jennifer and Connie and Paul for running into a burning building to save some computer devices. But I want to talk about our small businesses and bars and restaurants in particular, and they are understandably mad as hell right now, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls, as I'm sure you all are, and I considered asking the council to do a resolution like we did, like Pequot Lakes did. But after thinking about it and seeing what's taken place the last few days, the state is taking this pretty seriously, and they're revoking licenses and revoking people's rights to even do business. So there's really nothing we as a city can do as far as opening anything up. We can do small things like endorse the Lake Country Cares campaign or the grants we're doing with the EDA. I think we're doing a fantastic job as a city, but people are mad. People are mad out there. I know I talked to Paul Coring today. The county is having a special emergency meeting tomorrow where they're going to consider some action on trying to somehow open the county up or something like that. And I hope they don't go that way, but they may. And then finally, Josh Heinzman called me this afternoon, like maybe 2 hours after the fire at City Hall. And he said, we didn't get a bonding bill done yet. We're going to go to special session. Does Brainerd need some help with their City Hall? I called in and we're insured and we're not out anything but a deductible. But I just want to say thank you to Josh Heinzman for being quick on the phone to call and see if the city of Brainerd needs anything. And with that, that's all I have. Connie.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention that I've heard from staff and how thankful the bars and the liquor license holders are that the city did what they could do. I know that this is very hard for their business, but staff has heard from several of them. Thank you, City Council, for what you have done by delaying the payment and all of that. So thank you very much, City Council. I just wanted you to know that we have been hearing that from our people as they come licensed too. So thank you.
Good, that's good to hear. Anything else to come before us? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Bevins, second. Stunek was a little louder. It was like the same time. We'll vote
Nice.
by roll call.
T. Erickson,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Stunek,
Okay, yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
If you insist.
W. Erickson,
Come on.
Yeah, thank you.
and Johnson.
Yes, and we're adjourned.
Bye all. Thanks.
Have a good night.